to get started. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm Ravi Shankar. I teach creative writing here. Thanks for my creative nonfiction students for accompanying me. I'm very excited. I know it's the first week of class, and I think this will be a very auspicious way for us to get started this semester. Before we get started, thank a couple of entities without whom this wouldn't happen. First, the English department is responsible for that wonderful reception in the back. If you haven't had some samosas and spring rolls and drinks, please do so. And then also the Tufts Asian and Asian American Affinity Group, TAG with 4 A's, also helped bring the wonderful poets and performers we have here. So thank you so much for both of them. And today is actually a pretty special event because it is the 10-year anniversary of an arts organization dedicated to South Asian and South Asian diaspora poetry. And we have one of the founders here with us who's going to kick things off, and I hope tell us a little more about Matwaala. And the basic run of the program will be, we'll hear from Pramila, and then we're going to hear Nitin and Kunal some music, and then we'll finish with Arundhathi. I will also say that the bookstore has made the long journey and has books, including Pramila's new book and Arundhathi's new book, which just came out a couple of weeks ago, I believe, from Blood Axe. And personally, for me, one of the great thrills was getting someone to sign my book after I watched their reading, and I'm sure our poets here would be happy to oblige. So I encourage you to get a book. It costs as much as a sandwich and feeds you for a lot longer. So our first reader, Pramila Venkateswaran, is the Poet Laureate of Suffolk County, and most recently the author of Exile is Not a Foreign Word, and a book she was just telling us about at dinner, Tamil Dalit Feminist Poetics. It just came out, both of those books last year. She's also published other books, We're Not a Museum, which won the New York Book Festival Award, and she has performed her poetry internationally and was the 2011 Walt Whitman Birthplace Association Long Island Poet of the Year. Her academic and scholarly work has appeared in many places, including the International Women's Studies Journal, and she leads many writing workshops and is also the co-director and founder of Matwaala, the South Asian Diaspora Poetry Collective. And another round of applause because she just retired. She's now Professor Emeritus at SUNY Nassau. So, Pramila, it's a pleasure to have you. Come on up. And tell us about Matwaala today.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Ravi, for that lovely introduction. And thank you to Tufts University. And it's really lovely for me to be here with Ravi, who was the first person, in our very first festival 10 years ago, in 2015, he read for Matwaala, South Asian Diaspora Poetry. And the vision that we have for Matwaala is to make South Asian poetry visible in American literature. So I'm going to read a few poems from my latest book and also some from the earlier books. I would like to start off today with a meditation in Raga Mohanam. And Mohanam is basically, it's a pentatonic scale. So those of you who are familiar with Western music, it goes with do, re, mi, so, la. So in Mohanam, in Indian classical music, it's re, ga, pa, da. So you'll hear some of the notes in between the poem. And our friend here, Gunjal, will be accompanying on the santur.
Oh.
A meditation on rain in Ragam Mohanam. Gulmohar trees sigh on lawns filled with pools of cloud. Grey sky rings its last drops. Ga pada pada sa. Late summer dervishes, late summer plants are dervishes, their robes wild. Gapada pada pa gapada pada pa pada sa sada. Wind and rain speak through me. I'm sparkling dew, the shine after rain or sleep. Gari ga 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 pa sa ga pa da sa sa ri ga. I'm air on your tongue, your very breath. Sa ga pa ga ri ga pa ri. Thank you. In my next poem, I draw on the poem by Nazim Hikmet. So I chose an epigraph from his work, and it's called "My Eyes Can't Get Enough of the Trees," and that's the title of the poem as well. They wave to me from every side of the avenue, from hills, the lake. Oh, how they wave their arms in soft rain and in raging sunlight, unstoppable in their delight. When Pond Path lost her trees, I mourned. Every new house that sprang there is haunted by spirits of roots and phantom birds. I planted rows of Sharon saplings in my yard, each in memory of a lopped maple or oak. For trees are like books, telling us stories of places, even horrors, a fire, a storm, a lynching. Climate watchers, truth tellers, and tree lodgers, listening to the pulse of our planet, whispering of ponds erased, paths destroyed for malls. They whisper through it all, urged by their being, so our eyes can't get enough of them. A few years ago, I was working quite a bit on a collection of poems, and these were based on the Jewish people in South India, and particularly in Kerala. And I spent my childhood in Cochin, and as I was writing about my childhood, somehow all these poems also entered the mix, and so I delved even deeper into the Jewish history and culture of South India. I'm going to read you two poems just to give you a taste of the book. The Long Journey. She bundled everything they owned. 2 skirts, 2 blouses, a loaf of bread, dried olives, figs, some meat, a square cloth, 2 bowls, Joseph's robe, the family Bible, and a small sack of earth to remind them where they came from. The earth carried the smell of trees, the light of the moon, under which she prayed, the sound of water. She heard it call, "Come back." Centuries later, her progeny heeded its call. Hear her say, just the rocking of the body, a boat on the waters, whisper of prayers, a slight wind, will us to live that day and sleep without a care. Just to find a place to call on Yahweh to enfold us, keeps us full. And so just to, explain the joining of 2 cultures, Hebrew and Malayalam, Middle Eastern and, Kerala culture. There are many poems that show that mix, and here is one of them. And this is called Alphabet. That's how the letters looked, like tree branches, some gnarled, some bent, some straight, until she sounded them out into words that inhabited the abstract world where mysteries dwelled. Her eyes moved from right to left as she collected the twiggy letters and sounded them out. Shalom, Hala, concretizing them so I could taste them in my mouth, feel their breath from my gut, marry the sound. Malayalam was a land of curlicues, snails, snakes, jellyfish, letters with no backbone. They stayed somnambulant. When energized from slumber, they produced melody. Kashnam, Manslai, Samyam curled my tongue around themes of M's and Y's. Between branches and snails, I grew up with Hebrew in the synagogue and Malayalam at home. You're welcome to clap. It's okay. Thank you. So, I didn't mean to demand it of you. So my latest book, Exile is Not a Foreign Word, it explores different theaters of the world, particularly South Asia with the partition story, as well as other political issues, and then Europe, and then North America. And much of it is contemporary, some of it probably goes back about 50 years, but many of the scenes are very much the latest. So I would call it very much a political book. So I'm going to read you one of the opening poems, which is in several sections, but I'll read you just the first section, so you get an idea of what the rest of the book is about. Walls, a poetics. One of the references here is to a Jewish American philosopher. Her name is Hannah Arendt, and she wrote a very controversial book on Eichmann. And even today it's controversial because she talks about how the oppressed can also become the oppressor. And that was something that was very unsettling for many of the European Jews who settled in the United States, because it was a very difficult time around after 1945. Walls, a poetics. Hannah Arendt wonders about thoughtlessness. Are pushing thought aside like a stone caught in the mouth while chewing dinner. How we willfully look at or away from atrocities. Driving on Pond Path on an early February morning, my worries turn to dust when I see the sun, a fat gold semicircle, rising between the trees. By day, the sun's wand exposes the bones of the city, awakening foul air, the hues of dawn distant. I'm unnerved by the thought that I can be violent towards the ones I don't recognize, who are different. I send my thoughts out like birds to the borders, willing joy to people remaining unknown, reduced to numbers. How brave am I to think of others before myself? Illuminate my world with thoughts that can dismantle walls. And maybe I'll read you one more section. It's too late, they say, about the bank of the river disappearing. After the hurricane, we stand on the porch. Waves crash below. The beach is gone. Our house seems to hang by a thread. When a city vanishes, the rescued are on new land, readying to build again. You lose hope one day, gain it the next. Hands join and structures grow. We are experts at repair. We can't fix the family, but we are good at steadying a wobbly table, cleaning a polluted lake. We also know to quit saying too late, the mantra of hopelessness. Our minds, seldom fixed, are rocked by brain waves, bringing us closer to shore. So I'll finish up with these 4 poems. This first one was recently published in Collateral. It's called Elegy for the Flora and Fauna of Gaza. I don't remember the day I became aware of myself as separate from you, but always looked toward you, even if I was far away. The snow remembers the earth, remembers the tree, remembers the clouds, the rain, the sky, the lake by the house, and I. When hearts are unrelenting, I recall people struggling through the annals of history to love their land and protect it. When my sadness digs deep into my dreams, I send out wishes like feathers to the dying, the starving, and the fleeing, their shoes, shirts, and cups left behind. Who will write their elegies, sing their eulogies? The sky is a deep blue. The Mediterranean is quiet. The world's protest is a hum. My people who sing hymns of exile don't want to drive out our neighbors, for we remember the pain of the soul stretched out of the body and its longing to return to its salt. Of late, I've been also translating contemporary Tamil poets, Dalit poets, and I'll read you one poem, which is one of my translations, and it's this poem is by Aranga Mallika. She lives in Chennai, and in this particular poem, she puns on the word Ananda. So Ananda was one of the disciples of Buddha. And the meaning of Ananda also means bliss. So she puns on that, and also the word shade and shadowed. So she uses both of those interchangeably. And I'll first read it in Tamil and then in English. One fact is that many of the Dalits converted to Buddhism as a protest, and this was done when Ambedkar in the 1930s, he decided that he wanted to convert to Buddhism because of this row he had with Mahatma Gandhi about the Hindu texts and how Hindu texts retained, caste privilege. And so that's a long story. I don't have time for that now, but I just wanted to state that fact. Niral. புத்தரை பின்தொடர்ந்து ஆனந்தர் நிழல் ஆனந்தம் இனிதிழல் வெயிலுக்கு நிலவின் ஒளி ஞான ஒளி நர்த்தவம் நர்த்தவம் பேரானந்தம் பேரானந்தம் ஆனந்தர் நிழலே ஆனந்தர் அன்பு நிழல் அறம் நிழல் அன்புடையார் எல்லாம் உடையார். Shade. Ananda closely shadows Buddha. Shade is blissful, the present shade from heat. Silence, silence brings rapture. Rapture is Ananda. Shade is Ananda. Love shade, virtuous shade. Love is everything. Time for a few more?
Yeah.
Yeah? Just about?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'll end with these 2 poems. This first one is a song, and I'll end with a love poem. And I would like to dedicate this poem to the children of Gaza. And I initially wrote this poem in 2006, right after the drones were attacking villages in Afghanistan. But of course, now we have drone warfare in so many theaters of war around the globe. And so this is for the children of Gaza. Wind in the dunes. Draw the face of a child on the desert floor, so drones see it before they bomb from above. Let the sand shield us so the planes retreat. Let the wind play in the dunes. She danced into my life, stepping out of the rubble, raising her fist at the world. My tiny girl got back half the body she lost, a glass eye, a new hand, a leg and a face. I'm sorry I couldn't shield you, my child, I said, surprised when she danced into my life. She danced into my life, stepping out of the rubble, palms open to receive my word. Draw the face of a child on the desert floor, so drones see it before they bomb from above. Let the sand shield us, so the planes retreat. Let the wind play in the dunes. She danced into my life, stepping out of the rubble, shaking out the dust of the past. A tiny thought stirs in the wind in the dunes. The thought becomes a poem, bets the wind to the dunes. A tiny thought stirs, the ghosts awake. You and I sing its tune. She danced into my life, stepping out of the rubble, carving her name in stone. Draw the face of a child on the desert floor, so drones see it before they bomb from above. Let the sand shield us, so the planes retreat. Let the wind play in the dunes. She sang me awake, leading me out of the rubble, to find the wind in the dunes, to find the wind in the dunes. And end with this love poem. Is this love that stone-clad treaties cannot sunder? Behind her Madras headscarf and his hat framing it above, her fingers claw the wall to rise higher, to lock her lips with his. The couple just inches apart, the concrete rising between them. An open sky above, birds migrating. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Pramila. And we now have a very special musical interlude that is about to happen, and then we will have Arundhathi read for us. I want to, as they're setting up, Nitin's meeting his fans. I just want to briefly introduce our two musicians. I'm so excited that they're able to be here with us. I just want to read, this is a reviewer about Nitin Mitta, one of the most accomplished and distinctive tabla players of his generation, with a reputation for technical virtuosity, spontaneity, clarity of tone, and sensitivity to melodic nuance. So, and Nitin has played around the world at Carnegie Hall, at UCLA Royce Hall, the Smithsonian Museum. Maybe some people here might not know much about Indian music, so you could say a little something about what you're going to play. That would be great. And he is accompanied, we heard a little bit of the santur, this beautiful instrument if you don't know it, the tabla and the santur. And Kunal Gunjal is an award-winning santur artist. He has many accolades to his honor, including the Vedic Heritage Award and recipient of the National Scholarship by the Ministry of Culture Government of India. And he's produced an album that was nominated for a Grammy in the world music category. So we're very lucky to have both of these. Let's have a warm hand for Nitin and Kunal.
So thank you, Ravi Shankar. It's a great honor to have to be performing with Kunal, to play for all of you here, and to be sharing the stage with Pramila ji and Arundhathi ji. Thank you, Ravi Shankar. So Kunal will introduce the ragas, and as you can see the instrument santoor here and tabla, a lot of you are familiar with it. We might probably demonstrate later after.
Yeah, just a quick introduction about the santoor. This instrument originates from Persia, and as there was a lot of migration of different kinds of traders and musicians and artists as they were making their way east towards India through the Silk Route. So this instrument sort of landed in the northern part of India called as Jammu and Kashmir. And my mentor, Pandit Shiv Kumar Sharma ji, he used to live in Jammu and he grew up there, and he was an accomplished tabla player. But he saw this instrument and he literally took this folk instrument to the global stage of Indian classical music, and I was very fortunate to learn from him. Just now a word was mentioned in the poetry, Ananda, who was a disciple of Lord Buddha, and my Guruji actually, he composed a rag called Ananda. So I'm going to play that. Short one? Okay.
It's a mini version of a longer concert. It's a compressed file. stretch it out, usual alap jodja.
Yeah.
So I'll play a short piece. It's a mixture of two rags. It's a Shivaranjani, Yaman, and a little bit of Hansadhwani from a different scale. So you'll see like some transitions.
Scale with the
So this is the Shivaranjani scale. So sa re ga pa da sa da pa re ga re sa. Then you change one note and you can go into another rag. So that way you feel like you're combining these ragas, but they are really a part of each other. So they are called Jod ragas. So sa re ga pa da sa da pa re ga re sa re ga ma da ni da pa re ga re sa ni da ni re ga. This is Yaman. So it's Yaman and Shivaranjani. So ni re ga ma pa. Then from pa I play Hansadhwani. Pa. Pa ni sa re ga pa re ni pa sa. It's very famous Karnataka rag. So I kind of tried to combine all these three rags in one composition.
Excellent. And if they want more of your music,
Sorry.
how can they get your music now?
Online.
Okay. Online.
Nitin, Mitta, Kunal, Gunjal, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Instagram.
Great. Let's get another hand for these wonderful musicians. Okay, and we have one final reader. We had a little musical interlude. I'm very excited. We have a special visitor who's only here for part of the year. We'll be back in India. Arundhathi Subramaniam is a poet and a writer on the sacred. Her latest poetry collection, I mentioned, has just been published by Blood Axe Books, the Gallery of Upside Down Women. There also is a poetry anthology, Wild Women Seekers, and an extraordinary book of contemporary essays on sacred journeys, women who wear only themselves. And she has also been described as one of the finest poets writing in India today. In the Hindu, she's won the Sahitya Academy Prize, and her recent poetry collection, Love Without a Story, was described as a breathtaking and heartwarming book. So it's with great pleasure I introduce the wonderful virtuoso Arundhathi Subramaniam, who's visited students today, had a very full day, and still has enough energy to send us off with some wonderful work. So please, Arundhathi, come on out. Thank you so much.
It's got to be the most foolish thing to come up after music and dare to actually do anything with one's voice other than sing. I wish I could sing, unfortunately I don't. So you're going to have to put up with some poetry instead. And thank you, Ravi. Thank you. Thank you, Kunal. Thank you, Nitin. Thank you, Pramila. It was a wonderful start to this evening. I promise I won't take up too much of your time. I don't know how many of you are cold, but I'm pretty chilly here. I'm not going to take up too much time. But what I thought I would do, before I come to the most recent book, is to introduce myself. And it seems to me sometimes that the best way to introduce oneself is by talking a little about where one lives. And here's my poem about a city that I live in some of the time, a city that I'm constantly trying to get the hell out of. And when I'm actually out of there, I spend a lot of time being nostalgic. Bombay, Mumbai, Bombay, a city of many names, where I live. I live on a wedge of land, reclaimed from a tired ocean, somewhere at the edge of the universe. Greetings from this city of L'Oreal sunsets and diesel afternoons, deciduous with concrete, Botoxed with vanity, city of septic magenta hair clips, of garrulous sewers and tight-lipped taps, of 80s film tunes buzzing near the left temple, of ranting TV soaps and monsoon melodramas, city racked by hope and bulimia, city uncontained by movie screen and epigram, city condemned to unspool in an eternal hysteria of lurid nylon dream, city where you can drop off a swollen local and never be noticed, city where you're a part of every imli-soaked bhelpuri, city of the Mahalakshmi beggar peering up through a gorse bush of splayed limbs, city of dark alleys, city of mistrust, city of forsaken, tube-lit rooms, city that coats the lungs, stiffens the spine, chills the gut with memory. City suspended between flesh and mortar and faux leather and delirium, where it is perfectly historical to be looking out on a sooty handkerchief of ocean, searching for God. That's me and that's my city, which seems like the right moment to take you into another kind of poem. I don't know how many of you remember this moment in your childhood. It certainly happened to me, and I believe that each one of us has our equivalent moment. It was the moment when one thinks, I believe, of parents very often as just a backdrop to one's life. And there suddenly comes a moment when one swivels and realizes that this backdrop is actually a human being, a full-fledged human being. When landscape becomes woman. I think I was 8 when I looked through a keyhole and saw my mother in the drawing room in her hibiscus silk sari, her fingers slender around a glass of iced cola. And I grew suddenly shy for not having seen her before. I knew her well, of course, serene undulation of blue malmal, wrist serrated by thin gold bangle, the gentle convexity of mole on upper right arm, and her high arched feet, better than I knew myself. And I knew her voice like running water, ice cubes in cola. But through the keyhole at the grown-up party, she was no longer geography. She seemed to know just when to sip her swirly drink, just how to arc her neck, and she understood the words, the whole world of lacquered nails and baritone voices and words like emergency. I could have watched her all night. And that's how I discovered that keyholes always reveal more than doorways, that a chink in the wall is all you need to tumble into a parallel universe, that mothers are women. A lot of my work in the past decade has been about reclaiming the voices of women. As Ravi mentioned, a fair amount of my work in prose, and some of it in poetry, has been about exploring the sacred traditions, the sacred literary traditions of the Indian subcontinent. But as I did that, and that is work that has been it's something I've undertaken for years now, but as I did that, a question that often recurred for me was, where are the women? And I realized there are just a handful of Indian women mystics that many of us know about in India. And even these mystics, whether it's Mirabai, whether it's Andal, whom Ravi has translated, whether it's Akka Mahadevi, just a few whom we know, even these have been flattened into calendar art. They've turned into antiseptic, anemic, bloodless saints. Not women with hormones, not women with hungers, not women of passion, not women of power. We hear of them just as sentimental songsters and little else. So part of my work in the past decade has been about reclaiming these voices and learning to smell the danger in these voices again. And in addition to this handful that many of us are aware of, there are legions of women, legions, unknown, undocumented, sometimes with a local following and little else. So all these women became part of the book that's out there called Wild Women. Inevitably, as I was working on this archival project, the women started leaking into my poetry. And so I'd like to share with you a couple of poems from my most recent book, The Gallery of Upside Down Women. And the woman I want to share with you here is a woman who is largely unknown, almost entirely unknown, even to people in India, even to people in South India, where she comes from. She's a woman who wrote, we are told, poems to the god Shiva. But what we don't get told often enough is that she was also a prostitute. And she writes poems, we have one that's extant. She writes a poem to Shiva, whom she says is unlike the men around her, with whom she has just a transactional relationship. She says, but my God, he's different. And she calls him Nirlajeshwara, my God without shame, the shameless God. This is a God whom she can approach without a trace of guilt, without a trace of remorse, regret, repentance, nothing. And to me, this is one of the most exciting definitions of God that I've come across. The shameless God. Not the God whom you have to purify yourself in order to reach, but the God who gets his hands soiled to reach you. This is the woman whom I am fascinated by, one of the many, Sule Sankava. And I make sure that Sule Sankava in this dramatic monologue mentions a whole litany of other women, simply because you don't have to know about them. I just believe that the act of naming is one way to reclaim women. Women who just don't get named enough. So you'll find a litany there. You don't need to know their backgrounds. God's forgotten nickname. Who says harlots don't have choices? We can't choose our clients. And believe me, I've seen them all. Fried, boiled, scrambled, poached, sunny side up, runny side down. But we can choose our gods. I chose mine because he came without a name, and on some nights, without a body. I chose him because he waited his turn, didn't ask me to hurry or clean up, didn't complain about the line of shuffling men outside my door. When colleagues badger me for details, I turn sassy. I say, Mahadevi's god unhoused her, Jenna's deloused her, Arundhal's aroused her, Avayar's doused her. Some like them fried, others like them boiled, some like them immaculate. I like my gods soiled. But they aren't impressed. He must have a USB, they claim, a sun sign, an address, for God's sake, a name. I grow quiet. He has a garland of fancy titles, I say, but they don't quite work for me. Perhaps he is the world's greatest lover, but how does that matter when planets shrivel and char in the flaming cemetery of his gaze? And maybe he birthed the three worlds beneath the delirious hurricane of his feet. But how does that count? If he's too bloody innocent to read the lurch and plummet of a contrarian heart, the fine print of my breath. And yet, he is mine, friends, for a simple reason. For he rushes to my side when I utter his darkest, most intimate, most forgotten nickname, the one coveted by every god there is, my God, without shame. Here's a much better known Indian woman mystic. Her name is Akka Mahadevi. She also belongs to the 12th century. Unlike Sule Sankarva, she is celebrated. What we know of her, though, is that she wrote lyrical poems to her god, but more interestingly for many of us, this was a woman who peeled off all cultural, all social restraint and chose to walk the world naked. What it means to be Akka Mahadevi, who's always presented in iconography, in our popular imagination, as this naked woman with long hair flowing over her body. What did it mean to be this woman in the 12th century, walking the world naked? And what does it mean today, this state of radical vulnerability? What does it mean? This fascinates me. There is another woman in my work of prose, Women Who Wear Only Themselves, a contemporary woman who chooses, even today, to walk naked. Crazy women, fascinating women. And so it felt like it was time to ask Akka Mahadevi some questions. Questions for Akka. Akka of the unfurled hair and unpeeled heart. Why does it take forever to wear this body like it isn't a hand-me-down? To shrug off the bulletproof vest, even inside the home? To bring back every prodigal star and sullen comet under the skin? To stop winding the self like a bandage around the red wound of our smallness? To feel the wind in our hair? And Akka says, enter the body like a summer ocean. Unzip the serpent skin and go swimming, sister. Your hair wind-soaked, your heart empty. No longer sealed, sold, concealed, patrolled, defined, transacted, underlined, contracted, sheared, broken, tonsured, bespoken, liberated, mended, emancipated, defended. That's all it takes. Go skinny dipping in yourself. And I'm going to conclude with the last poem, a fun poem about, I'm not sure whether it's an anthem to tea or whether it's an anthem to women, perhaps to both. When two women drink chai together. All's well in the world when two women drink chai together. Time holds its breath, star anise glitters, ginger gives up the ghost, lemongrass grows rogue, cinnamon is less sinned against than sinning. Bodhidharma awakens when two women drink chai together. Aeolian harps trill, kettle drums roll, mind meets heart, part becomes whole. Apothecaries smile and sommeliers sing. Lao Tzu intones the Tao Te Ching. Nilgiri meets Darjeeling when two women drink chai together. Froth of jade, jewel dew, ancient cauldron, friendship brew. One's a hermit, 10's a jamboree. The perfect number is always 3. A cackling duo and a pot of tea. 2 women drinking chai together. There will be time to love our men, but not when caffeine meets estrogen. The defense budget and the state of AI must stand aside when earth meets sky. Ours is not to question why teaspoons tango and hippos fly when 2 women drink chai together. There will be a time when both man and beast are included in our cosmic feast. And one day it won't be out of line to quaff a martini or a bottle of wine. But right now, friend, it's been too long. Ooh long, ooh long, ooh bloody long, since 2 women drank chai together. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you all. We were going to have a little Q&A, but I think we should make it more impromptu. There's still food. And let's have one more hand for all of the performers. Pramila, Arundhathi, Nitin, and Kunal, thank you so much. Please do check if you're interested. The English department has many other events throughout the course of the semester that you can check. And there are books for sale in the corner. Our authors would be happy to sign a copy for you. And if you're interested in any of this, send me an email. Ravi Shankar here at Tufts University. Thank you all so much for coming. It's been a pleasure to see you all.
It's the first time I'm here.
So let's get a picture. Let's get a picture.